My name is James Coates, and by education I'm a historian. I went to UAB here, and I own a company called Historic Endeavors. And with that company, we provide consulting services and management services for, and we actually own a variety of history-oriented businesses. One of those, and the ones that you guys probably know me from, is Coates Classic Cars. And as soon as Jeff gets my thing to work there, then I'll show you some pictures. But the other, of course, is Oak Hill Farm in North Carolina, which is my family's home place, but we also use that as a wedding and special occasion venue. Been doing that, soft launched it about 2.5 years ago, and just getting our feet wet with that and starting to do weddings and events on a regular basis there. Also, I have been privileged over the years to do consulting work with the Alabama and Lyric Theaters, with a theater chain in North Carolina that's doing a dinner theater, like if you guys have ever been to a Sinopolis in Atlanta or something like that, where you go have dinner and a movie literally in the same setting. That's the kind of thing that we've done there, and I've been a volunteer for some of those organizations as well, like the Alabama and Lyric. What am I telling you this for? Well, these businesses have a common thread other than history, and that is they are client experience driven and client experience focused. So at Coates Classic Cars, we create memories that look like that. We are, as I'm going to get into later, a canvas for the photographer. And we give the photographer and the bride and groom an opportunity to create an image to hang on their wall that 25 years from now is still going to be in style, because that car never ages. At Oak Hill Farm, we make memories that look like that. That's looking towards the Black Mountains and Mount Mitchell off in the distance. We're about 35 miles east of Asheville, and that's looking straight over the bride and groom's head there. That was an actual elopement that we did, and actually I'm the officiant. So there. Now, like I said, products and services are no longer enough. Our market, the reason for this is our market is completely saturated with undifferentiated offerings. As competition has increased, well, there's what, 700 wedding photographers in the market. There are, how many caterers, there's how many venues. I got news for you. In the eyes of the average client, you're not as unique as you think you are. Now, I'm going to say some things tonight that I bet I hit on at least one thing tonight that's going to offend you. You're going to say, what the hell is he talking about? No, I don't agree with that. He's lost his mind. But also I'm going to tell you there's going to be about 3 things, if not more, that if you take home and implement properly, they're going to make you money. So the first thing that's probably going to set you back a little bit is you're not as unique as you think you are. What am I talking about? Well, photographers all the time, I'm going to call some photographers out. They come at me and they talk about my style, my style. My style is what differentiates me from my competition. No, it's not. Sure, you may have a different style than the photographer down the street, but when a client is looking at your work versus looking at the work of your competition, are they capable of looking at it in the subtle nuance that you're able to look at it in? I don't think so. They're not photographers. Sure, I mean, they may see this and say, oh, well, they use light differently than this other person over here, or they use focus differently than this other person over here. But I'm here to tell you, in a consult, most of the time, and we've seen this with our venue, they're not thinking at it at that level. They like what they like. They don't see things in the degrees of competitive distinction that you do because you're a professional. What makes you different? As far as I can tell, what makes you different is the experience that you provide. How is it to work with you as a caterer? How is it to work with you as a photographer? How is it to work with you as a vendor? What are your clients going to leave your facility or your presence with and take away from it and say, hey, we had a great time. This really worked well for us. This person was phenomenal to work with. And think about that for a minute. I've been driving wedding couples for almost 20 years. I've probably driven somewhere around 2,500 weddings. I've driven the Chinese ambassador, the Belgian ambassador, Nick Saban's daughter's wedding. The list, it runs the gamut. Every one of them that I've ever heard out of the back of my car is talking about a vendor. They never said, oh, this person's photos were great. Now caterers, you guys get a pass because they will say, hey, the food was phenomenal. But more often than not, what they're talking to me about, or what they're talking to one another about, and I overhear, is how wonderful this person was to work with. Greg Todd was wonderful to work with when we went to see him in CC. Robbie was fantastic at Happy Catering, and Holly and Bill and all that staff, they were just wonderful. I don't know how many times I've heard that very thing out of the back of my cars with you guys. Find out they're using Happy Catering, it's like, oh, the first thing I hear is, oh, they're fabulous. Not their food is fabulous, they're fabulous. Think on that. What are we trying to do here? Well, as far as I can tell, and I've been doing this a minute, we're trying to avoid commoditization. What is commoditization? Commoditization is when a customer comes to you and he can't tell the difference, or she can't tell the difference between you and the guy down the street. You have just dropped down to the lowest level of economic value that you can possibly be, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And you don't want to be there. You don't want to be a commodity. You don't want to be a good. You really don't even want to be a service. You want to be an experience. Commoditization for years has hit manufacturers. You know, how many people want to go to Walmart and buy a blender? Well, you buy a blender based on price, right? Maybe a feature or two here or there, but mostly price, okay? So manufacturers have tried to figure out how they can compete, and they just can't. I mean, really the only basis that they can compete in is that price. Competing on basis of price, though, is a trap. It is, because if price is how you're advertising, and price is how you're trying to make a distinction between you and the next guy, you're going to get beat every time, because you're probably not, if you're here in ALWEP, you're not the cheapest game in town. Furthermore, when you come up with a new something, how long is it before somebody else tries to come and do the same thing? And a lot of times, they do it cheaper. They try to do it cheaper at least. And let's think of venues for a minute. Flagstone's here, Wynwood's here. Who else is here that's a venue? Rockhurst is here. Harbor's here. Oak Meadow. Hilton and Tutwiler, 2 hotels but still venues. All right, so let's take Hilton and Tutwiler for example. You can both do a wedding rehearsal dinner. You could both do a wedding reception. You could both do guest accommodations. Let's say that I'm getting married and I really like the Tutwiler, but the Tutwiler's not in my budget, or they're not available that day. And I know about you, and you're my other option. Where am I going? I'm going to you, right? So that's why I say you're not as unique as you think you are, because somebody may think you may be the favorite, but if you're not in the budget, or they are, for whatever reason, the availability's not there, or there's something that's a deal breaker for them. They don't have an indoor space, they can't work out the accommodations for out-of-town guests, whatever that is, all of a sudden it doesn't matter how well they like you, you're off the list. But you can stay on the list if your experience is markedly better than the guy down the street, right? So if I go to the Tutwiler, and I'm not picking on Lindsay, but if I go to the Tutwiler, she's got thick skin. Yeah. If I go to the Tutwiler and I want to have a wedding there, and it's just, I can't justify spending that money, but they treat me markedly better than everybody else, and I believe that they can create an experience for me that's markedly better than everybody else, I'm coming off the money. So, we got businesses in the marketplace that are moving towards experience-based offerings. These are just a few examples that I've come up with right off the top of my head. Everybody knows about boutique hotels. Ian Schrager and the like, the Kessler Collection, which owns the Grand Bohemian, they're doing things with their restaurants, with the amenities that they offer, with the public spaces, the lounges and that sort of thing, that we never thought about doing in the hotel industry or hospitality industry 15 years ago. I've got a cousin who owns the Mountain Lodge and rental cabins in North Carolina, and he's actually one of the people who turned me on to some of this client experience stuff, because it's causing us to rethink how we offer hospitality. The Apple stores. Now here's a connection between these two. When Apple went to design their stores, who'd they go to? They went to Ian Schrager and the Kessler Collection and said, how do your hotel lounges look? Yeah, really, that's what I said. So what they tried to do in their store with lighting, with decor, with space, is to create an atmosphere that makes people want to come in and buy something, right? Starbucks. I hate to use Starbucks in a client experience example. I've had as much bad Starbucks as I've had good Starbucks. But there's a reason why their coffee costs what it costs, and that's because they've created an environment where you can come in, you can sit down, you can get on the free Wi-Fi, you can have a business meeting. Hell, I've booked weddings at Starbucks. Anybody fool with Carvana yet? You fool with Carvana? Yeah. You fool with Carvana as it worked? What kind of?
Actually get the car, but it was a darn good deal, and it was really convenient.
So we're talking about shopping for something like, how many people in this room have bought a brand new car? I mean, brand spanking new, all right? It's about the finest smell in the world, isn't it? All right, so of that, how many people that have bought a new car had an experience with a salesperson that would make you, the next time you need a new car, go straight to that person? All right, keep hands up. All right, so there's, what, 6 people in the room. Now, how many people would go to that same person if they were at a different dealership? How many would go to that same person if they were at a different dealership that sold a different kind of car? I've still got 3 or 4 people in the room. So what's the most important thing here? The fact that it says Honda or Cadillac or Lexus or whatever on the front of it, or the experience that you had when you bought the bloody thing? Topgolf, where's Jill? Jill, stand up. Everybody knows Jill? Jill's our ALWEP secretary. She's fantastic. Topgolf, I love this example. So, can you ing a thing? We got this inging stuff going on in culture right now. Go RVing. You ever seen these commercials for go RVing? Like, how the hell is RVing a verb, or whatever, however you get to that? Antiquing. My mom comes into town from Florida. She wants to go antiquing all the time. Golfing has been an ing thing for as long as golfing has been around, right? But Topgolf inged the driving range. Everybody been to an old school driving range, made a fool of yourself? Okay, well, Topgolf said, let's take that idea, let's put food and music and lighting and alcohol, because God knows that always works, to it. And all of a sudden, it's client experience. It's a place where you can come and have a party, hang out. Hell, we had an ALWEP meeting a couple of weeks ago, which I'm still getting comments on. Sports stadiums. Let's talk about sports stadiums. Anybody been to Jordan Hare and seen the giant video board? I mean, I know you didn't want to raise your hand to that. When Alabama fans raise their hand to that, I know there's something up. So, but think about it in Alabama, and Bryant-Denny is about to do the same exact thing. They've put video boards up to enhance the client experience. You guys know the SEC just passed beer sales, alcohol sales in stadiums. And I heard the other day that one of the schools was at Ole Miss, Mississippi State. One of those is going to be the first ones to actually offer it. Alabama and Auburn both said, hey, you made it legal, but not this year. What are they trying to do? They're trying to increase the client experience that they have for the guests that are sitting in the seats. Pro sport leagues. Boy, here's one. So in the backwoods of North Carolina, and really all I am is a backwoods North Carolina farm boy, me and my brother used to sit and watch the Redskins game. Why do we watch the Redskins game? Because on the East Coast, that's what came on. There wasn't no pro football hardly to be seen, except, you know, what you could get. Back then, though, I remember when the announcers used to call games really, really matter-of-factly. They didn't get into all this theatrics. Now, anybody see Cam Newton's outfit the other day? Christ is making memes, right? Now, why do you think he does that? Now, I'm gonna tell you like this. I know Cam does a tremendous amount for kids and charity and that sort of thing. So as far as I'm concerned, he can wear wherever he wants. But number one, I think he's secure enough in himself that he can wear whatever. But number two, I think he's trying to generate that buzz. And he succeeded, didn't he? Walt Disney. Walt Disney does a better job of this than anybody on the planet because he basically invented, not the company, but him as a person before he passed away, invented client experience as we know it. If you go to a Disney facility, and it's not just their theme parks, but if you go to a Disney set, there's a pervasive attitude of cast, not employees, but cast, and on-stage and off-stage areas, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So why are these companies moving to these offerings? Why are we going in this direction? Well, we talked about avoiding commoditization. We talked a little bit about generating buzz and reviews, because, hey, look, if somebody does something for me that is fantastic, the first thing I'm going to do is going to tell somebody else, right? Or I'm going to post it on social media. That's kind of publicity that you can't buy, folks. And also, they're trying to respond to changes in the way that folks buy. What do I mean by that? So, in today's Walmart culture, people are trying to spend less on things that they need but don't want. I need toilet paper but don't want it. I want to go buy it. I need groceries, but I love to cook, so there is that part of it. But other than that, it's just food. I need somebody to come and spray my house for bugs. Now we're getting into services. But I don't get any enjoyment out of that. What am I trying to do there? I'm trying to scrimp and save as much as I can on the goods and services that I need so I can put more back to take a weekend vacation. I'm looking for an experience. I want to go to the mountains. I want to go to the beach. I want to go abroad. And I don't want to have the money that I want to spend doing that taken up by the working man. So these businesses right here that, hell, hotels just lodging, Apple Store's just an electronics, Starbucks is just a cup of coffee, so on and so forth. They're trying not to be seen as a good or a service, but they're trying to move into the experience realm. So should you. Let's talk about the relationship between client experience and marketing. Like we said a minute ago, the point here is to get your clients talking to each other on their social media, and perhaps most importantly in your reviews. If you're not mining your reviews, if you're not sending your links out, hey, love to help you, so glad you used us, would you mind leaving us a review? You're doing it wrong. It's less dependent on traditional media because of this that it's generated. So if I've got couples on Facebook or Instagram talking about the wonderful service that I just provided, do I need to buy a magazine ad? I'm not buying a magazine ad. The question, though, that you have to ask yourself is, how will my clients describe their experience? If I just hired me, how am I going to post on social media that we just rode off in a 1958 Rolls Royce and the chauffeur was fabulous and he held the umbrellas for us and he carried our luggage and all this, that, and the other? I've got to think about that. I've got to think about what I'm doing in terms of how is it going to be repeated and talked about. That gives you the opportunity to spend money or time on things that look like advertising, but they're not advertising. Client experience presents the opportunity to define your brand, which is defined not only by the goods you sell, the service you perform, or the content that you share on social media, but the experience that you create. Everybody with me so far? I hadn't lost you? All right, so I know this is some crunchy material, so I've kind of changed it up towards the end and we'll get some fun involved in it. But the stuff in the front is important. I want you to kind of get that as a foundation first. So we talked a minute ago about companies trying to move from goods to services to experiences. We're not going to really talk about commodities because nobody in here is in the commodity business, but let's take this for an example. How many people drink coffee? Most of the room, right? Okay. Coffee beans. This is my favorite example of the progression of economic value. A coffee bean trades for about the equivalent of 2 cents a cup as a commodity. If you were to take the coffee bean and grind it and roast it and all that and make a cup of coffee out of it, the price that Maxwell House or Folgers or whoever pays for it as a commodity from Brazil or Chile or Colombia or wherever they're getting it from, it equals out to somewhere between 1 and 2, for the higher end brands somewhere around 3 cents a cup. Now, my shop, which is out near Pinson, is right up the street from Royal Cup, and I smell coffee all the damn time. And it's my former shop, which is where Regent's Field is now, was right next to Merita Bread, and that was even worse. I got fat. But in any case, let's take that same coffee bean, roast it, grind it, put it in a bag, put a pretty label on it, sell it in a store. Well, now it's about anywhere from 15 to 30 cents a cup, depending on what brand you buy and how much money you want to spend, right? Bag costs anywhere from $3 to $10, depending on how much you want to spend, and you think about how many cups are in a bag. Now, serve it at a Waffle House. Last time I was at a Waffle House, got a cup of coffee, it was $1.19. I don't know what it is now, that's been a minute. What's Starbucks charging for it?
$18.
Close enough. What's Lucy's charging for it? What's the boutique in Italy that you remember having a cappuccino at 10 o'clock in the morning and going out and having the day of your life charging for it? Is it enough? When a person buys a service, they purchase some activity carried out on their behalf. But when they buy an experience, they're paying to spend time enjoying a series of memorable events that a company stages which engage them on a personal level. Commoditization, of course, moves us up the scale. Commoditization moves us down the scale. Customization moves us up. One or the other. You want to be an experience and you're a service, customize it. You are a service and you want to get treated like a good, let yourself get commoditized. This happens largely by asking the right questions to identify your best offerings to stage a memorable experience. We're all in the business of asking questions, right? How many people in here have been to Alan Berg's program that he's done 1,000 times for ALWEP? So probably most of the room. What does he talk about? He talks about asking questions, and we're going to get into that in a minute. So, companies that stage experiences increase their price much faster than the rate of inflation because customers value those experiences more highly than commodities, goods, or service. So that's a cerebral tidbit up there. I want to talk about what it actually means. Remember when we said, I don't want to pay the Orkin man? There it is. The Orkin man can only go up so much because the next time he comes to your house and sprays, if it's gone up by 300%, you're going to gripe, right? How often are you going to get married? How often are you going to hire CC? Or do something at Jill's place? Or Happy Catering? You're probably not going to come back regularly enough to know if there's been a big price increase, right? No. So, how can we get that money that's laying on the table? My remarks tonight are based largely on an assimilation of works. One is a book by Pine and Gilmore called The Experience Economy. If you have an opportunity to read The Experience Economy, a lot of this material comes from them. A lot of this material comes from a guy by the name of J. Conrad Levinson, who wrote the Guerrilla series, Guerrilla Marketing, Guerrilla Selling, and that sort of thing. Some of it comes from Alan Berg. We're going to talk about Alan in a minute, and some of it comes from my own experience. Pine and Gilmore use the term mass customization. What a boring term. But what does it mean? It means, according to them, efficiently serving customers uniquely. Okay, what does that mean? Well, okay, our point here is to turn any good that we're selling into a service and any service that we're offering into an experience through customization, asking the right questions. One of the things that we have to do in considering how to mass customize and how to turn a service into an experience is eliminating customer sacrifice. What's that? Customer sacrifice is the difference between what a customer wants to get and what they settle for. Anybody ever settled for something they really didn't really want to buy? Maybe it fit 8 out of 10 of your needs, but it just killed the other 2. There it is. So when we look at the things that we provide and we look at our client consults, we look at our rooms in our hotel, we look at our facilities at our venue, we got to ask a question. What sacrifice can we eliminate to create the greatest value for our clients? Well, I had to go out and buy a 3rd white Rolls Royce. And I got a couple of friends that have farm-type wedding venues that had to go out and build an indoor space. And they had a phenomenal space, but they were tired of using tents. So they built a phenomenal space to go with their phenomenal outdoor space. I have a need at Oak Hill for additional restroom space. We have to bring in a restroom trailer, which is real nice and air conditioned and lighted and all that, and goes with the type of event that we produce, but we'd rather not have to do it. So that's an aspect of customer sacrifice that I've got to think about eliminating, because that's where I can create value for my clients. Customers face trade-off situations. Remember I said you got that thing that you like maybe 7 or 8 aspects of, but the other 2 were just, they weren't deal breakers, but you weren't excited about. Why is that? Well, it's because variety is not the same as customization. James, what in the world are you talking about? Here's the news flash for you guys. Customers don't want choice. I see the room like, they don't. What a customer wants is exactly what they want. They don't want to choose. They want to walk in the door with either a preconceived notion of what they want, or they want you to help them get to what they want through the questions that you ask, and then they want that one thing. They don't want 6 things put in front of them. That's too many choices. Here's an example of that. How many of you got cable or satellite TV subscriptions? Give me a show of hands. Not too many. I got rid of mine a couple of years ago after being a DirecTV customer for like 15 years. They were pissed. Well, one of the reasons that that's going away is because I'm paying for a whole bunch of channels that I don't need. Sling lets me choose the channels that I want. All of a sudden we've got a relationship there where I'm not getting the 2 or 3 or maybe 6 out of 10 things that I really don't want or really don't need. I can order a la carte what I'm hunting for. Packages also, just like the streaming TV options, are a way to get you to a starting point, but you got to have them to where they're customizable. And when I say customizable, I really don't want you to lay out a whole bunch of options for the client to pick from custom options. I want you to ask them the right questions to find out what's important to them and say, hey, I think this color linen would look really good with the flowers that Hot House is doing for you. Hey, maybe they don't take it. Maybe you move on to something else, but maybe that's something off their list right there that your professional expertise has led them to. You have to narrow a client's options down to a manageable number. We've been talking about this whole time. If you put too many things in front of them, their head's going to explode. They have trouble identifying their preferences also due to pressures in the marketplace. They're overwhelmed with options and they're trained to settle. You go buy a new cell phone. I mean, you may be a hardcore Apple guy or a hardcore Android guy and you know when you walk out of the door what you're going to get, but if you want a real experiment in sociology, go to Best Buy on a weekend and watch the people shopping for a cell phone. It's too many options. You need a manageable number, right? Knowing the questions and interpreting the answers is part of what you're charging for as part of your service. And you have to search for uniqueness in those answers to find opportunities for you to create value. So if I ask a client, where'd you meet? Or I ask them, do you have dogs? Or I ask them, where do your parents live? What do you do for a living? If they come out of the wall with something that's I've never heard before, talked to one of the other day, said, I'm a cerebrospinal radiologist. A client I was talking to, I don't even know what that is, something to do with x-rays, but I was looking for. I wouldn't be surprised if there's medicine involved, a medical aspect involved in this wedding and its decor. Her husband to be is also a med student. Can you take an opportunity and take some time when you're doing client consults, when you're doing client interviews, and we're talking to clients on the phone? Amanda's my reservation coordinator right up here in the front. Raise your hand, Amanda. She and Kirsten, which most of you guys know, handle all the reservations for Coates Classic Cars and Oak Hill Farm. They don't give pitches, they ask questions, and they look for opportunities in those answers to serve somebody uniquely. All the time we get, well, I'm riding the trolley from my wedding to the reception, so I really don't need the car for that, but I sure would like to have you for the getaway, and I sure would like to have it for photos. But my granddad's not in great health, and he's a car guy. He really, really, really loves cars. Could you take my grandmother and grandfather from the ceremony to the reception instead of us, since we're not using that ride? Opportunity to create value right there. If you're doing client consults, you need to think about scheduling the time that you spend with clients with gaps in between to make notes not only on that client, but on the questions that you asked and the answers that you got, so that you can try to use that for building better questions for the next client. And think in terms of this. Even if we are merely delivering goods or info, which we should even if we are merely delivering goods or info, we should personalize the delivery, which by definition creates a custom offering. Bride and groom come to my wedding venue. First thing they're getting, I don't have one here, I'd show you, is a folder. What's the folder? Okay, I got this idea from my accountant, by the way, of all people. They get a folder that's got the Oak Hill Farm logo and the oak tree embossed on the bottom of it. Standard, red, same as the colors for our venue. But right up at the top, it's got a lithographed insert about the size of a business card that go in that say, Stephen and Ashley, May 26, 2020. And I hand that to them. What do you think that does? I just personalized the experience. Now, there's not anything in that folder that they haven't already gotten by an email or they can see on my website. There's no new information in it whatsoever, except maybe we might have made a note on something from our conversation with them, jotted down a price, jotted down something, stuck it back in there for them. There's not anything there. It's the folder that it's in. Guys, I've booked a lot of weddings off folders. Think on that. Stop thinking in terms of the actual work that you do and focus instead on the experience that you provide. And learn to describe that experience effectively to your clients in order to create value. I'm going to use myself as an example. Coates Classic Cars is not a limousine service. It is not a transportation company. We don't want to be a transportation company. We don't want to be a limousine service. Rides are for Uber. You want to go from point A to point B, you can hire Uber or Lyft and do it for a hell of a lot less money. What am I then? Well, first of all, like I said on image 2, we're a canvas for the photographer. We have a relationship with the photographers that we work with, that we've worked with these folks, unless we see a new one, which we don't see a new one all that often unless we're in another market. We kind of know where they want to put the bride and groom. We know where they want to put the car, and we have the opportunity to create that image for the client that you saw earlier that 25 years from now is still going to be in style. Beyond that, we're a prop. We're a part of the reception decor for the guests to admire and enjoy. We did a wedding right here at this venue with our checker taxi cab. Everybody's seen the New York checker taxi that we have? It's pretty cool. We drove it right up in that door, right into the reception, and put the bride and groom in it and left. That was creating an experience. The photos are phenomenal. And pursuant to that, we're the last memory that you're going to leave for your wedding guests as you depart at the end of the evening. What in there talks about a ride? Nothing. What do? We charge for time. We say, this is your car. It is available. The one that you want, the one that you requested. And by the way, we've already asked the questions to find out what they're looking for to put them with the right car. You can have it for up to 6 hours, and we include up to 2 complimentary rides in the car. It's just one flat rate price. We're charging for time and not for the trip. You can get away with a lot when you're charging for time. Consider today's influx of subscription services. Netflix, charging for time, right? You used to go down to the video rental store, pick up a VHS tape or Betamax, I'm showing my age, and if you didn't get it back on time, what you got? You got a late fee, right? So they're charging for time, but they're charging for time secondary, and it's not really a pleasant experience. But when you think about charging for time, you need to think about not only charging for the time that you're on site or the time that you provide or the time aspect of your service, but charge for the change resulting for that time. Now, there's a lot of times that I go out that I don't know that I mean, we provide a great service, but I don't know that my service in and of itself is worth the amount of money that I charge. But by God, I know that the images that you're going to make from it and the memories that you're going to make from it's worth more. Consider your production costs in setting your pricing, but charge instead for the value that you add. If you're a floral designer, you're adding a lot of value to that wedding reception that they can't get anywhere else. And you're another prop for the photographer. And by the way, that flowers, maybe the arrangement changes over the years, but a timeless floral arrangement is a timeless floral arrangement 30 years from now as much as it was 30 years ago. Stage the unexpected. Customer surprise is as easy as doing something unexpected, and it's the easiest way that you can come up with to make a service into an experience. You can take a service, add an element of surprise to it, and it becomes an experience. When folks come to my venue, they're not expecting to be handed that folder, and I'm going to come back to that because that's the most stupid, insignificant thing, but like I said, it's made quite a bit of money. It might be an unexpected amenity. And if you're going to do an unexpected amenity, let's talk about partnering with a known brand of high quality. So I'm a musician. Any musicians? Everybody say yeah if you're a musician. Yeah, all right, that's weak. Try that again. Everybody say yeah, there you go, thank you. So I'm a mediocre piano player. And what I like to do as a mediocre piano player is sit down and play music with musicians that are better than me. Because it makes me elevate my game. It makes me do the things that I can do better because I'm stretching and I'm trying to keep up with these guys. Flew Virgin America not long ago. Virgin Atlantic, actually. I put Virgin America in here, which is now defunct. But flew Virgin Atlantic the other day, and the first time I have, I've always been a Delta guy. Got afternoon tea on the plane. What about that? Not only did I get afternoon tea on the plane, but it was a designed, name brand, put together box from a name that you would know. Fiji, I like this. We put bottled water in the back of our cars. It's Fiji. And by the way, guys, if you're not taking advantage of stuff like that, Fiji has this wonderful thing where for $39 a month, they send you 30 bottles of the little 330 milliliter bottles. At a wedding venue, put them in the fridge. What happens when a bridesmaid is getting ready at Oak Hill, goes to the refrigerator and doesn't pull out great value bottled water and pulls out a bottle of Fiji? She says, ooh, look, Fiji. It's bottled water. But it's creating brand association that's moving up the economic threshold. UAB is doing this right now with Frank Stitt. A friend of mine was in the VA hospital the other day, which of course UAB does all their food services stuff. And I looked down at the menu, and it says, Chef Frank Stitt inspired seasonal menu. This is a hospital. A hospital? All right. They're trying to play with musicians better than them. And it's working. Handwritten cards go a long way. Follow up, somebody gets something in the mailbox. Everybody gets inundated with email, right? So you have an opportunity there to send something unexpected to the bride and groom that's personalized, and try to include something in there about the wedding, preferably about something that you didn't produce. Thank you so much for having us for your wedding. I really love those florals that you had. Would you mind sharing the designer's name? I may already know it, but I'm using that as a bit of theater. But don't give away your surprises up front, because they have more value as surprises than as sales tools. So I don't like telling people up front, hey, we've always got a cooler with bottled water, and by the way, it's Fiji in the back of the car. I'd rather it just be there. I'd rather them get in the car and me hand it to them and say, hey guys, I know you've been on your feet forever. Can I offer you a cold bottle of water? Oh, that'd be wonderful. And then you pull the bottle of water out and you hand it back to them, and it's Fiji. This stuff is stupid. Folders, water with a label on it, but it works. Then you have to think in terms also of refreshing your offerings. Periodically, we talked about packages, we talked about the modules that go into packages. Change it up now and then. Change up what you're offering to a client. Change up what you're selling. And oh, by the way, when we do the business boot camp in November, which is the third Tuesday this year, we have a speaker on industry trends. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we can implement some of that. Memorabilia. Photographers, you're in the memorabilia business. You don't know it. Memorabilia allows us to share or communicate our experience with others and even elicit envy. Look where I went last weekend. Pull out a t-shirt. Even better if it's autographed. Photographers, photo booths. I do not like photo booths that only go to social media. It can go to social media, that's great. But it also needs to be a printed film strip because we're looking for something that's tangible. Tangible mementos and memorabilia give the client the opportunity to attach memories to it. Parting gifts. And yes, even the social media hashtags are a function of memorabilia. I'm going to come back to memorabilia when I give an example of the photographer that I work with here at the end of the program. Jessica Morris from Hot House and I had a good conversation about this the other day. What's your front door? If you're the kind of person that sells rents vintage cars, or maybe photo booths, or something like that, your interactions with a client naturally are going to be more limited than a photographer or a designer that sit down and really have the opportunity to have a consult and learn more. And in that case, the first impressions are going to be weighted, right? You're going to have to do a whole lot in a short amount of time, and oftentimes that happens on the phone. First place I want to go with front door is your website. If you've been to Alan Berg's talk about websites, he talks about 4 elements. You want to have an aspirational image, text that speaks to you, and what we mean by that is text that uses the term you and your and not we and us or our. We can do this for your wedding. This is the kind of experience that we can provide for you. Not the kind of experience that we can provide, but the kind of experience that we can provide for you. A testimonial quote, and finally a call to action. I took this and I applied it to experience. The aspirational image, the purpose of that is to depict the experience and insert the client into the experience. You photographers with headless brides, I'm telling you, that's all right to show a headless bride in a photo now and then to show off the bouquet, but the preponderance of your marketing needs to have a head in it, because the bride needs to be able to put herself there. And without a face, the psychology doesn't work. See me after class about that. Text that speaks to you describes the experience, speaking directly. Okay, so we're describing this thing that we can create for you, and no one else has it. The testimonial quote is a personal endorsement of that experience. And finally, the call to action is an opportunity to make that experience yours. Alan wants to see this, and I agree with him, not just on every page of your website, but in every defined section. Consider the time that they've spent by the time they've gotten to that section of your website. They've gone through a search engine, they have found out the existence of your product, they've done all this work to even find out where you're at on the map. All you got to do now is help them buy, right? Consider the experience itself. Are you passing the time when you're online? Are you avoiding work? Are you shirking some responsibility to pull your phone out and play with it? Your clients probably are. So in that scroll, in that news feed, the content that you're doing has got to be engaging. And finally, the transition between the online world and the physical world and the experiences that you stage and set have to be seamless. If your branding doesn't match up, if your philosophy doesn't match up, if the text that you're telling I hate having other people write copy for your website. It's wonderful to hire a professional to help you write copy for your website, but the copy for your website needs to have an aspect of you in it. Greg Todd, amen? I'm there. So that makes the language that I'm using on my website and the language that I'm using on my, and when I'm having an encounter with someone in a car or at the venue, a seamless transition. But what about social media? What about social media? It's easy to get commoditized in a world of photos and text. Because like I said, you're not as unique as you think you are. And that photo may be a damn good photo, but your competitor's photo on Instagram may be a damn good photo too. It should reflect the unique way that you stage experiences. So we got to start thinking about not just sharing a photo of the bride and groom, but sharing a photo of a bride and groom having an experience at Flagstone Farm, or having an experience at Rockhurst, and not just art for the sake of art. That's how you connect with a client. If I'm a designer, if I'm Design Productions and I'm doing lighting and drape, where's Andy? There's Andy. 50% of my social media campaign is before and after photos in the same frame. Because what are they buying? They're buying my ability to transform a room, ... and create an experience. Ashley Stork, you do a better job than anybody I've ever seen of including an aspect of humanity and reality in your social media.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
You do. There are other people that do it phenomenally as well, but they're not in this area. Not like, my house is a pigsty, you got to come over and try to trip over stuff. But that's one of the things that I notice when I walk into a business, because if they care about that, they probably care about everything else, right? Go to a restroom, go to a restaurant, if it's got a dirty restroom, you don't want to know what the kitchen looks like, okay? Does all of that reflect the experience that you're offering? If it doesn't, you need to take a look at those elements and think about how you can stage that better.
I can take any space in college or interstate. A man walks across the space while someone else is watching him. This is all that is needed for an act of theater to be engaged.
The renowned stage director Peter Brook, ladies and gentlemen, graciously played by Lauren Kimbrell of Hot House and Prop House. Everybody give her a hand. I'm making a point here. One of the things that we have to think of in terms of creating client experience is theatrics and staging. Your business is a stage. Therefore, the work that you perform is theater and nothing short of it. And it's time to embrace that as a model of performance. The goods that you're providing are your stage. Your flowers, Cece, are your stage. The services that you're performing are your props. And your experience is what you're really charging money for. How they came away feeling, not seeing, not collecting photographs of, but feeling after what you provided. Goods are tangible, services are intangible, experiences are memorable. Remember what I said about viral marketing and social media and things that look like advertising but aren't advertising. If they're memorable, they're going to get shared. The photos are just memorabilia of that experience. There's nothing wrong with photos for photos' sake. Art for art's sake is phenomenal, but they're also to document a creative experience. They must be staged in order to engage the individual and create a memory, and not just as entertainment. A band is entertainment. The dance floor is not entertainment. It's engagement. Let me ask everybody in the room something. What would you do differently in your business if you charged admission? Deep thought, right? Here's the news flash. You already are. What in the world is he talking about? Let's take some simple math real quick. You do an $80,000 wedding. There's 200 people there. $400 a guest, right? What's your percentage of the overall wedding budget? 10%? Just charge $8,000 for what you do? Let's just use that for round numbers. That means for every guest that just walked into that wedding, you are charging $40 for them to be there. Wow. Makes me think about tipping the cap a little differently. Makes me think about how I present the food if I'm a caterer a little differently. It makes me think about not just the images that I'm creating, but my behavior as a photographer, being an actor behind the lens, shooting actors in front of it a little bit differently. Your audiences in that are threefold. You have the guests, wedding guests, you have your clients, and you have the fellow vendors. So guests are the people that your hosts, your clients, have paid to be there. So by the way, of course, everybody knows that that $400 a guest was not paid by the guy walking in the door, it was paid by the host family, right? But that makes it no less important. Your fellow vendors are no less important. And your guests are also participants. So I keep coming back to this bit about we need to make sure that we're showing folks experience that'll get them talking amongst themselves. But the guests were there. Remember that. They had an opportunity to see what you provide. They don't need to just hear it from the bride and groom. They need to see that experience that you created, and they need to have it reinforced by the bride and groom and their buzz that you've created. Finally, they've probably never seen this done before, at least not the way that you do it. And that gives you an instant opportunity for theater. While the work of the experienced stager perishes with its performance, the value of the experience lingers in the memory of any individual who was engaged by the event, where it remains long afterward. That's Pine and Gilmore. That's viral marketing, and it's created from experience. Let's think in terms of the environment that we're staging these experiences on. We talked about your front door, but think about your space as a whole. Ceiling heights, lighting, color. Whole Foods, Fresh Market, looks different from a regular grocery store inside, right? Topgolf, wow. Y'all do more with lighting than probably anybody that's in the experienced staging business. Light Rails project. Anybody ever go to the 14th Street Bridge downtown before it was light rails? Pretty scary, right? Put lights in it and cleaned it up. It's amazing what that does. You have, in terms of that space, on-stage and off-stage areas. Virgin Atlantic, I used them as an example earlier, has eliminated the bulkhead between flight attendants and guests. And when they eliminated that bulkhead, you are now putting, as management, the flight attendants in the on-stage area where they have to be in character at all times. Disney does it too. Disney has an on-stage area and an off-stage area. Conversations between people about what they're going to do on the weekend or whatever doesn't happen in on-stage areas. And finally, with this, engage the senses. Talked about Fiji water a minute ago. It's amazing what that does out of the back of a car. Food and drink is one of the easiest ways I know of to engage the senses. Jeff Carlisle at Jam Entertainment does a better job with food and drink than probably anybody I've ever met. And that is because every time I go into his office, the first thing he asks me is, hey, want something to drink? And I know he's doing the same thing with his client because his refrigerator's in full view where they can see and make a selection. We talked about lighting with Topgolf. Acting. Acting is not designed for you to become someone you're not, but to emphasize aspects of character and experience to connect with clients on a memorable level. So, to define that, you're taking deliberate steps to connect with an audience. I'm using my experience as having driven so-and-so to create an experience for driving this next person, but that doesn't mean I have to do it that same way. I can think of it in terms of who am I as a person? The person I am when I'm driving is not the person that's up here on stage in front of you. It's a character and a role that I play. And you might need to think about doing some of the same in the staging that you present. We need to focus not on what and exactly what we and our employees do. We need to be doing the right thing, of course, but moreover on how we do it. And the easiest route to an experience in that is to provide poor service. Right? So if you want to make something memorable, do a crappy job, right? That's unfortunately the easiest route to slide towards poor service. Frontline employees are part of that front door concept. They're the first people that your guests are going to see and interact with. Consider the sequence and movement in time. Couriers, for instance. I know a good UPS man from a bad UPS man. How do I know? Because a good UPS man is always in a hurry, whether he's behind or not. Because he's conveying an experience that tells me about the nature of his company. Guys setting up decor, lighting, they're putting on a show. It may be to the client, it may be to another vendor, which, like I said, is no less important. To that end, they have to act in a way that engages the customers or the vendors or whoever the audience is and be interested. Hey, how you doing? Ask questions. Establish a friend relationship. Hotel front desks is a hotel chain that decided a few years ago that if a guest is standing in front of them at a hotel front desk and the phone rings, they're not supposed to answer the phone. Now, this particular hotel chain has back office staff that somebody's going to answer the phone on the third ring if it's not picked up. But if you're standing in front of me, you take priority over the phone that's ringing, right? Ask questions, and I keep reinforcing this, rather than giving pitches, and use the answers to write your routine for the act that you're going to play. Establish a friend-type relationship and find out what's important. That's back to my asking questions. That's back to the unique answers. That's back to those unique answers from asking those questions are where you're going to create value. I'm not suggesting that you become a relationship. I helped with and attended a seminar that Cece did recently that said if she got too close to a client, she's going to do their wedding for free. I get it, trust me. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't become a confidant, have a friendly type relationship, have an amicable relationship, befriend your client in such a way that there are boundaries established. And watch your syntax and your tone. Share with you something happened the other day. Who here has been to Biltmore? All right, a bunch of people have been to Biltmore. I did a wedding the other day at a church in Asheville, because we do the wedding car stuff in North Carolina as well. And I had an encounter with a valet that was not necessarily bad, but it was a little bit off-putting. I'll share with you what happened. Carried the bride and groom from the ceremony to the reception. Their reception was at the Inn on Biltmore State. Pretty swanky venue, really nice ballroom, nice vendors involved. I know most of the vendors that were involved with this thing. And I was paid not only to take them from point A to point B, but to also have the car on display for the reception for a period of time. A short while, 30 minutes, something like that. So I pull up and I get out of the car and I walk over and I meet the valet. Hey, I'm James with Coates Classic Cars. This is Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They're having the reception here in the ballroom. I need to run this in to the mother of the bride. She needs it for the reception, but I'll be right back to put this wherever you need it. Hey, you can't leave the car. I got a tour bus coming. So what do? I go back and I move the car. Now, keep in mind, I don't know what's in the bag. I mean, it could be the mother of the groom's insulin for all I know. Right? Watch your syntax. Okay. When you said, hey, I need that to move, I got a tour bus coming through, say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, congratulations. Ballroom's right this way. By the way, could I get you to move the car over here because I got a tour bus coming through and I don't want to get your car damaged. Thanks for looking after my car. Very well. I did that. That happened. That actual thing happened. And you know what happened? I'm walking back to the car. The valet's boss comes up to me and says, hey man, thanks for speaking to him. He's a good guy, but sometimes he gets overwhelmed. Watch your syntax. Peyton Reed from Rare Transportation at Apex Valet, everybody. Thank you for being a part. Remember what I said about staging experiences. This is the first time we've ever done this, and this is completely unrehearsed, but I wanted to take an opportunity to put my money where my mouth is and have Lauren read a quote or Peyton come up here and engage in a little act of theater. Let's talk about cues. A lot of the cues that you're going to experience, that you're going to put forward, that your employees are going to put forward are nonverbal. They're behavioral. It's body language. There's two great examples of this. One, Disney cast members. So Walt Disney employs a significant amount of people that their job is to pick up trash. Now, there's a trash can within 15 feet probably of anywhere that you're going to stand on a Walt Disney property. But they have an army of people that their job is to pick up whatever doesn't make it into the bins. But that's not their only job. Their other job is, if they're within 10 feet of a guest, to make eye contact with the guest and smile. Don't say anything. Just make eye contact with them and smile. Why? Because their purpose is to reinforce the experience that Disney is trying to stage and the image that they're trying to present, which is one of happiness. Norwegian Cruise Line is my other great example of this. Norwegian Cruise Lines used to have some swanky boats back in the 90s. Wheel of Fortune did a show from the MS Seaward, which was one of Norwegian Cruise Line's boats. They had a team of people on the boat that all their job was to do was polish stuff. It's a brand new boat. Nothing's dirty. Why are you polishing a brass handrail? It just came out of the factory. But they created an ideal in the minds of the guests, the passengers on that boat, of cleanliness and tangentially of safety. You're retired. Guys, it's a hot button. I'll give you two examples of this. One, there's a photographer that I work with on a relatively regular basis that religiously wears a coat and tie. Not a suit, just a coat and tie. I don't know that I could shoot a wedding in a coat and tie if I was a photographer. But it gets a long way with the mothers of the bride and the mothers of the groom. I know other photographers that dress in all black and try to disappear into the shadows, and that's also, I think, a very valid approach. But nonetheless, it's time to think in terms of your attire as being one of the cues that you're putting on. When we're doing these cues, though, we want to make sure that we're not overloading people. I think that one of the reasons that people religiously now are booking Airbnbs at the expense of some of the mainline hotels is that they're tired of the overload of cues, that there's a check-in process, there's a check-out process. I come back from wherever I've been and the housekeeping staff's watching TV in my room. All that goes away with an Airbnb, right? Pull out an app, it's handled, it's done, that takes care of it. And you want to use them effectively and memorably to create or add to your experience, but avoid overdoing it. Here's my next one for you. The other day, I'm at a Fats Cafe. Anybody ever heard of a Fats Cafe? Fats Cafe is a restaurant indigenous to the Carolinas. It's a whole lot like an Applebee's or a Ruby Tuesday, except that they are more regional. They're providing a more regional dish. But this is a $12, $15 a head restaurant. This is nothing special. So this particular restaurant is in my hometown, big city of Marion, North Carolina, and it is not exactly known for fantastic service. It's hit and miss, but they're open till 11 o'clock at night, and in a town of 10,000 people, that's much appreciated. So I go in, having been fully expected to be underwhelmed. Food's always pretty decent, but the service, man. And this is what happens.
Here's your salad, Mr. Coates.
Thank you, sir.
Would you care for some freshly ground pepper?
Oh, yes, please.
How fine would you like it ground? Is this sufficient?
Perfect.
Very good.
Thank you, sir. This happened in a restaurant roughly the equivalent of Applebee's or Ruby Tuesday. What just happened? I had to ask myself that. When he first said, "How fine," I was like, what? Wolfgang Poe, ladies and gentlemen, who, by the way, is a new ALWEP member by the Birmingham Historic Touring Company, which does the Birmingham Ghost Walk and various other historic walks. Thanks for playing a part. What cues did he use? His behavior. He was a consummate professional. I mean, Wolfgang was never met the guy. He's 400 miles away from here, and he pretty much nailed him. Now, he's obviously not in the same attire that my waiter was in that night, but he had the opportunity to use his uniform as a cue, and he used a prop, pepper grinder. What did he do? He took that prop and he used that prop as an opportunity to create an experience with it. That simple. It's a pepper grinder. What's on the table in front of you that you can use to create an experience? He found something. This is one of those restaurants that has the pepper grinder hanging over on the wall, you know, and you come by, it's not one on every table. So he makes a stage of going and getting the thing, bringing it back to me, and then asking how fine I want it ground. Now, I'm not that picky, folks, but the fact that he asked the question, he asked a plausible question to indicate a higher level of service. Now, Mr. Carlisle, while I'm yapping, if you would make something happen. Ah, perfect. Look at that. Ask and you shall receive. What cues did I use in staging the skit? This is not the goofiest tablecloth you've ever seen in your life. All right, so y'all are dining on these nice linens and so forth, and I wanted to reinforce the experience, the ideal that this is not a high-end restaurant. This is not somewhere where I would have expected that level of service. By the way, the waiter's name was Alan. And if I can find out a way, I'm going to hire Alan to do something, because you don't let that kind of talent go pass you by. But what happened to Alan's tip? Bingo. Because what's Alan charging for?
And experience.
And his time. Thank you. Who got time? Bingo. He's charging for his time. So he's representing fats. He's providing an experience, but he's billing for his experience in terms of time. 45. Acting, you say? But that's artificial. There's no such thing as an artificial experience. To a degree, all experiences are co-created, happening inside an individual person in response to what's being staged before them. Every experience within the individual is real regardless of what instigated it. Their perception is their reality, and there are four realms of that. Escapist, this is where you want guests to become active participants. This is where the dance floor and the photo booth come in. Entertainment, that's not the dance floor, that's the band. That is designed, it's passive, but it's still important to make that time more enjoyable. Educational is limited in the wedding world, right? But what about the bride and groom's speech? What about the best man and maid of honor speeches? And finally, the aesthetic, which is to create a beautiful, inviting, and comfortable environment. The house staging, the aspirational images that you use. The creation of an environment like a wedding reception using fakery and imagination. They're trying to upstage their neighbors, right? Their peers. But we could boil that down, couldn't we? Folks, I'm here to tell you we're in the business of getting people to spend money they don't have, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't like.
It's becoming increasingly difficult to tell the real fake from the fake fake. There are good fakes and there are bad fakes. The standard is no longer real versus phony, but the relative merits of the imitation. What makes the good ones better is their improvement on reality.
Improvement on reality. So why do people go to a wedding? To improve on the reality, at least for a time, right? The event designer, the job is to incorporate the elements into an otherwise blank space and time. They also foster opportunities for the actors to coordinate with one another. I can't have a good experience in the back of my car if the groom doesn't know where his phone and his keys are, right? So that's how we can interact with one another. How does your relationship affect other vendors? How does your coordination affect other vendors? And by the way, you refer those who you have an experience with because they're already potty trained. They already know what you want. Barrett Spear knows what a wedding planner is going to call and want because he's done it 1,000 times, right? Finally, and we'll close with this. Let me give you some real world examples. Like I said earlier, a photographer is not just in a business of performing a service or providing a good, but working with them should also be an experience. And the photos that they're giving you, because they're not charging for the photos, by the way, they're charging for their time, is an item of memorabilia. I work with a photographer pretty regularly that the last thing that we do before we pull off from the reception venue is he reaches in the car and hands the bride and groom a stack of about 12 printed photographs. They're just snapshots, no big deal. But it's something tangible. It's something the bride and groom can carry along with them that they can look at for 10 or 15 minutes and say, oh wow, look at this. What does that do to the environment in the back of my car? Helps me, right? They're not looking at their phone the whole time. They got something they can enjoy together. And what's it doing for the photographer? It's creating an opportunity for an upsell. He's just gotten to hand them some photographs that are printed. Maybe that makes them think about buying a nice album. The delivery of a good can make it an experience, as I said earlier, and the opportunities for that are unlimited, one of them being attire. I work with a floral designer from time to time that he makes sure whenever he can, and he can't do this at every wedding because logistics are what they are, he doesn't go into a room and deliver flowers and deliver decor and not be there. He hands the bride her bouquet. Wow. And then he says, do you like it? Is there anything I can do differently? I don't think he's ever had anybody say, oh, I want you to do it differently or whatever. The fact that he was there and delivered the service makes him not a good, not a bouquet that he's selling, but an experience. And by the way, he's wearing a jacket and tie and shirt, but his tie and his shirt match whatever color he just used in the wedding. Caterer did a wedding the other day, and the bride and groom picked out a very nice menu, and they wanted a particular hors d'oeuvre that this caterer is known for. Not really elaborate. I think the caterer told me it cost like $8 to make this hors d'oeuvre, but they just couldn't justify the expense. It was a big wedding, about 350 guests. You spend another 3 or 4, on this one thing that they want. Really like this dish, but they've got a good menu here, and they really just can't figure, I can't work it in. Caterer makes a note of this. What does the caterer do? Makes 20 of them. Brings them to the bridal party and get ready. What did he just do? Not advertising, but looks like advertising. He just created 20 lifetime customers, folks, for the price of, he made 20 of them, so $160. Where could he have spent that $160 on advertising and gotten that kind of result? Because he made a note and went the extra mile. The venue, I had a guy come from a site visit the other day with a Sierra Nevada shirt on. Looking forward to this one. If y'all let the cat out of the bag, I'll kill you. Sierra Nevada's got a brewery in Asheville now, just right up the road from me. And pretty swank place, got music and that sort of thing. He comes in with one of those shirts on. I asked him about it. It's like, oh, you been to their new brewery yet? Oh yeah, I'm there all the time. Me and my buddies go hang out, shoot pool and all this. Their wedding's coming up at Oak Hill on the 3rd Saturday of May. Guess what the fridge is going to be full of? That's an opportunity to do what Cecil Whitmire at the Alabama Theater and William Fox before him of the Fox Theater chain called deluxing the show. I'll leave you with this and let you go home. We're here to stage a memory. Sometimes it's unexpected. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jack. Sorry, Jeff. Knocked your battery cover off. Jack is a 1952 Buick Special. I bought him on an impulse at a car show in Pennsylvania and drove the thing 900 miles home. Terry Bruno's favorite car, by the way. Did a wedding at the Caraway Davy House. Everybody remember the Caraway Davy House? And first wedding the car ever did. I rearranged my schedule so that I could drive it. Didn't buy this car to go in the wedding business. I bought this car because I liked the thing. And I thought, okay, we'll try it. We'll see what it does. We'll put it on the website, see if it generates any interest. Wes Roberts took that photo, by the way, at the Sonnet House. But we're at the Caraway Davy House. And it's 9 o'clock at night. We're under the porker share. And I'm leaned up over in the corner, kind of like I was when the valet came up to me earlier. Something I'm wanting to do. And this lady comes out. She's got blue rinse hair. Y'all seen this, right? She's like 80, if not more. And she gets, halfway over to the car, say the car's at the door, and she stops. And she's got these rose-colored trifocal glasses on, and she pulls them down, and she looks at the car, she looks over at me standing over in the corner, and she says, "Is that a Buick?" And I'm over here, and I'm straightening myself up or whatever. It's like all of a sudden somebody's paying attention. Mind you, this is the first wedding the car's ever done. And I said, "Well, yes, ma'am, it is." She says, "About a 51 or 52?" And I said, "Well, why, yes, ma'am, it's a 52. Now, by now, I'm straightened up and I'm starting walking towards this couple, okay? Or it was a couple. It was her and her son. And she's looking and she's enjoying it. You could tell she's just getting real reminiscent. And all of a sudden, she gets this big grin. She says, "I lost my virginity in a car just like that." Folks, I hit the ground. I'm dying. I'm out of character. Sometimes you have the opportunity to create an experience in the guests, for the guests, among the guests that you didn't even know was possible. I booked 3 weddings from the people that were standing there in the audience because they remembered that story, they remembered the guy was there, and they remembered the car. Thank you all. Have a great night.